Thank you so much to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Is there something interfering with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed therapist, whom you can start communicating within 48 hours. There is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 15,000 plus counselor network. It's not a crises line, it's not self-help. This is professional counseling done securely online. BetterHelp service is available for clients worldwide, and you can log in and send a message to your counselor anytime. You can also schedule weekly video or phone sessions so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room like traditional therapy. BetterHelp is also committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change your counselors if needed. It's a lot more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is also available. There's a special offer for Overthinkers Society listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Suli. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Also, wanted to remind you guys that Overthinker Society podcast is now launched as its separate YouTube channel. I'm still going to be uploading the next few new episodes on my main channel here, but moving forward from that, I'm going to be uploading the new episodes and little snippets only on the new podcast channel. So go to the link in description. Go to the link in description below, and please hit subscribe if you want to support the podcast and want to listen over there. So let's go to Overthinker Society podcast channel. Link in description. Okay, now let's move on to the podcast. I got to speak with the lovely Theune, and we talked about a lot of things, including dealing with rejection, in his case, in Dave's case, as an actor, in my case, just with everything in general in life. And he talked about a lot of other things as well, how we dealt with our strict kind of educational upbringing and our strict moms. I also got to ask Dave about what actually happens in the audition room when he goes into one as an actor, and what to expect, what actually happens. That was a really interesting topic to talk about as somebody who's not an actor. And we talked about a lot of other different things, and it was very cheery, a very enlightening conversation that I got to have with him. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Thank you. Enjoy. I briefly heard from Truman that you're based in LA, right? Which does sound like it makes sense, considering that you're an actor. And
yes, I'm based in LA. I got out here in 2009 from Wisconsin, and
oh wow,
yeah, I do the acting thing. I do comedy, mainly improv comedy, and I know Truman because I used to coach a group that he was in for a while, and he's great. He's great.
What group, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't remember the name of their group now that you're asking. I probably should remember that. That was a few years ago now. I perform, or did perform when things were alive in the world at the Upright Citizens Brigade, UCB, here in Los Angeles with a group called Bangarang. That was my group, and then randomly at different points, a group called Sassy Bluff. These are all silly names. But
I like
these
that
are the
name.
It's a good one. And that group, we would do silent improv. We'd have music playing, and then we just do kind of silent Charlie Chaplin-like comedy. And
like
that's what I do. Yeah.
Miming stuff.
You got it. Exactly.
That's cool.
Exactly.
Do you still do that?
I do. Well, right now it's been virtual just because everything's been shut down. The theater hasn't opened yet. So hopefully when things open back up, that'll come back. But I've been doing that type of comedy for around 20 years, and it's great. How long you been singing? I mean, probably your whole life.
I'm ashamed to say that a year.
A year?
Yeah. A year and a half.
Holy
Still
cow.
a baby.
I'm gonna ask you some questions if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I've been listening to your music.
Thank you.
And it's great.
Thank
I do.
You.
First question is, has anyone said to you that your music and your voice, two people, I guess, maybe three, that came up into my head was the sound of it, and this is not your voice so much as it is the music. It reminds me of the Postal Service. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Oh man.
They have one album. If you ever want to look them up, it's called The Postal Service. I think they're great. Is a blend of Death Cab for Cutie and another person who I can't think of, the lead singer from Death Cab, I think. That's something that you remind me of. And then your voice and also some of the music reminds me a little bit of an artist called, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Imogen Heap.
Oh my God. That definitely rings, she definitely rings a bell. I do not remember like any of the songs or anything.
That's okay. That's okay.
I think the reason why I remember is I think that her name came up a couple of times in like comments and stuff where people were saying the same thing as you are right now, like where I remind, my music reminds of hers.
Yeah, and she's great.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. The thing is, like, my music taste is very like basic, I would say. It's very shallow. It's kind of like little just dabbling here and there, nothing too deep. So I always love getting recommendations from people. What else do you listen to?
Well, so those two bands, the group and band, is probably indicative of some of my taste in that though I'm making like early 2000s references here. So it's older stuff because I'm in my 40s and I get caught in a loop of listening to stuff from when I was younger and then that's all I listen to. So exploring new music isn't something I'm great at. I'm probably pretty basic in that whatever it was from my teens and 20s is where I'm stuck at.
Yeah. Which there is nothing wrong with that.
No. I'm fine with it, but there are times where I'm just like, I've got to stop listening to Oasis and I've got to find a new band.
Are you one of those people who just like have listened to every single song by Oasis and you just put it on repeat over and over again?
It's very comforting. It's very familiar, very it's like comfort food, and I just know it and I really like it. And it still sounds this is what every older person says is that it still sounds new to me. Like it's fresh because it was fresh when I discovered it for myself. Yeah. And so it always feels like that. It felt like do you have siblings? You have any
I do. I
sisters?
have a little sister.
A little
years
sister.
Younger. Yeah.
Okay. So like I have two older sisters and like I listen to whatever they probably listened to and I like some of that stuff that they liked when they were young or when they were in high school and then I would listen when I was a kid. But then like when you get to that age, in your teens, when you like start discovering like, oh, here's music for me from people close to my age or just a little bit older. Like those are the people I'm still stuck on is the people who seem new to me then. They still seem new to me now. But I got to find new stuff.
But that amazes me because I don't know if you can relate to this, but there's this like heartbreaking moment in time when you realize that you're listening to a certain song that you knew just like gave you the chills when you first listened to it. But that chill goes away over time because you listen to it. Yeah. It's just like, oh my gosh, I would do anything to go back to that time when I first listened to this song, this track, and it was like mind blowing. And you never get that.
You never get it again.
No.
It's like when people say like, if it's drinking or drugs, there's a saying that you're always chasing that first high or that first drunk or whatever.
Yes.
And I feel like that's similar to music where when you hear that new song and you're like, this is my favorite song and I can't imagine ever getting sick of this. Did you have so I'll ask you for an example. If you don't have one, that's okay. But when you say about like, oh, that new feeling of you're so excited and it has these emotional, is this emotional impact on you. Can you name moments or bands or songs where you like distinctly remember, oh man, this is the thing for me right now?
So there, I used to, and it's not as much now, but I used to listen to a lot of like Coldplay. Like even recently. Yeah, I love Coldplay. And there was like this one song called Hypnotized by them. It's like this really like scenic, beautiful track that's just like very chill and very like, and it's one of those tracks that just escalates and builds up over time, and it just like
Yeah.
boom, it's like an emotional explosion in the end, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember this moment where I was listening to that track like at the beach side, and
Uh-huh.
it was like I was sitting alone at a harbor, just like high
Mm-hmm.
up on like one of those like rocky harbor thing walls.
Sure. Sure.
And it was like I got to that climax moment of the song, just staring out into the horizon with nothing but clouds and some seagulls flying around. And it was like I burst into tears a little bit.
Yes.
Just all
I would have
alone.
cried.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like I know that song. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, but they do say that like music takes you back in time, you know, into certain moments when you were listening to them.
Like
It's like a
like
little,
nothing else.
yeah. What about
Yeah.
you? Do you have any specific songs and moments related to it that you can
I
recall?
have a couple big ones for me, and they're both high school. I'll give you three. We'll try to make them quick. The biggest one is after my freshman year of high school, I went, and this is that we're talking 91, 92, 1991, 92. So it was a while ago. I went to a party. It was like in the afternoon, but it was one of my friend's parents weren't home. And this guy, pretty cool guy, his name is Neil. And we went to his house, and there's a bunch of people there. And we go upstairs, like where his room is, and there's this song playing, and I'm like, what is this? I've never heard this. And he goes, "You don't know who this is? This is Pearl Jam." And
I don't know Pearl Jam.
you don't need
Jam.
to. You
Am
don't
I
need
missing
to.
out?
They
Oh,
were
okay.
huge. They were huge in the 90s. They were big in the
Okay,
90s.
okay.
They came around when the other bands like Nirvana and Soundgarden,
All right.
Alice in Chains, so these older bands. But it was the beginning of the what they called the grunge movement. But I heard that, and there's this song called "Alive," which is a popular song, and I felt like a wave had washed over me, and that was like the first moment where I could remember thinking like, this is my music. This isn't my older siblings' music. This isn't older people in high school. This is mine. And I got obsessed with that band. And I got very, very into them. And then I remember when I went to college, I came from a super small town. We're talking like 1,500 people in my hometown.
Yeah.
As small as you could get. And I got to college, and a guy was like, "You got to listen to this band. There's this band called Sunny Day Real Estate." And
This is such a bummer. I don't seem to know any of these.
you don't
these
need
names.
to. You don't need to. I'm way older than you, and you shouldn't.
I wish
know
I
this stuff.
just wish I could relate. You know, I just wish I
Yeah,
could
yeah.
know what songs you're referring to.
That's okay.
But go
That's
on,
okay.
go on.
But the Sunny Day Real Estate had this album called Diary, and it was another moment where I was like, I'm in college and I'm hearing music I never would have had access to, because this is like pre-internet. I would never have had access to this stuff had I not gone to a bigger city with people with different tastes than my friends from home. And it was exciting. Like those moments are truly exciting and fun, and they make you feel like the world is bigger and there's more out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And if it was a pre-internet period, then what was the way through which you discovered music then? Was it radio? Was it like...
It was 99% for me radio. Like I didn't I don't know if you're from do you live in a big city or a small city, small town?
Big, fairly big. I moved
Fairly
around
big.
quite a bit, but yeah.
Gotcha. So where I grew up, again, very small town, just mainstream radios. You're just getting whatever radio's putting on. That's just mainstream songs. And then there was at the time there was like a record chain called Music Land, which is also part of Sam Goody. They don't exist
Sure.
anymore, I don't think. But so they would have music in if I drove to this town that was like 20 minutes away, then they had a music store. But then whatever my friends might hear, but that was it. I was a little bit locked in, and I just didn't know. You know how like there's a saying like, you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know what I didn't know. But there was a whole world out there of music that I just had I was clueless. I was
Sure.
clueless. And then I went to college, and then things opened up a little bit, opened up way more. I was still pretty mainstream with what my tastes were, but
Yeah.
just still bands I just never heard of. And then by the end of college, the internet started to become a bit more of a thing. And then, of course, now it's ubiquitous, and it's wildly, of course, influential. And now you can hear anything and everything from all over the world at any time you want, which is incredible. And that's how I get to hear you. Otherwise, I would never ever probably heard you, which is amazing.
It's fascinating, though. It seems like we both seem to have parallels in terms of the timeline of our journey of music discovery, so to speak, because I had the same kind of similar experience where everything was kind of running on by default up until kind of my college years, or like kind of around my late teen years, which was when I started to kind of curate my own tastes and discover what I personally am drawn to, as opposed to what's just kind of playing by default around me. Because like growing up, I would say I thought I was a bit of a late bloomer until I talked to you just now, because in terms of music, I just had no taste, zero taste up until like college. Yeah,
when you say zero taste, what does that mean? What are you listening to when you're in high school? What are you getting excited about music-wise?
I would say like in high school, maybe I did start to form some of the artists that I like and some of the styles that I would listen to, which has changed drastically since. But like prior to that, I didn't own an MP3 player. It was just always just radio. I wasn't interested in music. I wasn't interested in hearing music. And it was just always like just a lot of K-pop playing because it was just what was playing on the radio. Yeah. And like Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, when they just first started coming around on the radio when I was living in the States, it was just always running by default. And I think for me, it was when like the hard times hit, like when my parents got divorced, when I had to come back from the States, and I had to kind of adapt back to the Korean culture, which I was just not having an easy time with. That like when things got rough, that's when I just turned to music, and that's when I really kind of resonated with some of my favorite songs then.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say that was kind of like the starting point, almost like the first like starting point of my musical journey as a music listener.
Can you remember? And you don't have to say it if you don't want to.
Yeah, sure.
But in the beginning of those harder times, like parents' divorce, and anything else, do you remember some of those musicians, artists, bands that were like there for you in those moments when you started to like embrace it a little bit more?
No, I can name exactly like one band.
Ooh, I would love to hear this.
It's Rascal Flatts. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Sure. They're huge.
It's so ironic that there's like this Western folk, like country music, but it's just like, I don't know why, but they had some really, really emotional songs that just like really hit you. Like in terms of the lyrics as well, like they're just, I don't know. I don't care. I love Rascal Flatts. I actually, frankly, haven't listened to the recent stuff, but in the late 2000s. Yeah. There was one song that actually I still listen to this day because the lyrics just hit so hard. But there's this one song called My Wish by Rascal Flatts. And like every single word, every single lyric is a gem in that song. It's kind of like almost like a commandment for life.
Yeah.
It's lovely. But yeah, that Rascal Flatts was a band that I was like listening to a lot when I would just like, you know, try to get out of the house as much as possible to avoid reality.
Yeah, they were a gigantic band, and I get that they're still big, but they're not new anymore, so it's harder when you're not it's hard to be you don't stay, no one's as relevant when they're 20 years into their career, or it's harder to be, especially in music. But That band was huge. And it's interesting that you, like, it's interesting how you, and this is all of us, I think, but like you grow out of those bands. Not that they've gotten worse or anything like that, but you're just like, okay, they were there for that period of time, and now I've moved on to the next phase of whatever my music evolution is. I used to see this therapist, and she said to me, she's like, and sometimes I equate this with bands and musicians. I'm like, people will enter your lives for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime. And I always thought, oh yeah, like that's sometimes with musicians and bands, like they're here for a specific reason that I need. Like when I went through a breakup, this was years ago when I was still living in Wisconsin, and do you know the band Blink-182?
No.
Okay, you don't need to. Also a very old
God.
band. I love this. That's okay. Well, anyways, they split up, and there's this other band called Angels and Airwaves, which is what one of the guys started this other band, and they came out with their first album, and I went through the breakup, and I would get home from work, and I would just put on my headphones, and I would go for a run, and I would just listen to this album over and over and over and over again. And now I still like them, and I've still seen them in concert, but they don't have the same weight as they did. Because I'm older, they're older. I'm not in that place in my life, but they're like, oh, they were here for a reason, and that was to help me get through that point in my life, and they did it. And I think that stuff is exciting, and that's like one of the powers of music.
That is so relatable. Yeah, I have the same philosophy with music where it's like, people, and this is like in the context of a lot of like music kind of setting interview where it's like I'm there as a musician, and I'm getting asked questions about me being a musician. And like one of the most frequently asked questions that I get is like, what kind of influences do you have? Like, what kind of artists do you take inspiration from? And I find that question really hard to answer because I'm still a listener. I'm still a music listener, and that's all there is. I feel like it's very separate from like me making my own music, because I still listen to music, and the way I listen to music is just like you, where there's a time and place for different genres, different artists, different albums, and it's kind of like when you're not in the moment, you just don't listen to it, and when you are in the moment, you just listen to certain things. It's kind of bittersweet, I guess, if you think about it, because you kind of move on. It's kind of like relationships almost. Some relationships stick for a long, long time. Some just don't. You just move on from it.
But it's the same excuse that you have to give them that you give a relationship, which is, hey, it's not you, it's me. Right?
Yes. Yes, it's not. It's definitely that. So I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Definitely not.
If you don't mind, I would love to ask you some questions about, not music, but
Can I ask you? We'll get to that. Can I ask you one more thing about you?
Oh no, you can ask me now if you want.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then we can get to questions about
no,
comedy
because I always forget. Because I'm just asking you to ask it now because I always end up forgetting what I was going to ask.
Okay, well don't forget that question, and I'm going to ask you this one last thing because this is I'm curious about this, and you may or may not have a good answer.
It.
So I'm on Spotify, which is not the greatest way to listen to music, I realize. But I look at your music only because they don't pay artists. They have a reputation for not paying artists well.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm looking at your music, and you had 9. How many singles did you have out in 2020?
I think you're just about right. There,
somewhere between 8 and 12, right?
6, something like that. I actually don't remember.
I don't either. But you've had enough that would make up the length of a traditional album.
Or album, yes.
Now, is there a reason that you don't release it as an album? Is it because those just aren't relevant anymore? Is it just because like you just want it? This is how you want to do it. What's the reason for just releasing singles as to one chunk, in an album?
So it's actually related to my personality. Basically, I have this thing where I'm basically a very impatient person. If I get distracted quite easily. So I like to, when I start a project, i.e. a song, I prefer to just stick to that song as opposed to like working on multiple different ideas and never finishing any one of them. So once I start a song, I like to finish it. And once I finish that song, I just can't wait to get it out to the world, you know? I can't wait. I don't understand. I cannot relate to how some artists can like take a year off to like prepare an album, because if I were in that position, I would be getting so impatient to like, I would be itching to get it out there. And so it was that, like, I just finished a song. I just wanted to share it as quickly as possible so I could get it out as a single. And then I move on to the second song. And another one I think is, has got something to do with like the relatability to it for myself, because I'm a little less like this now, because I want to be a little more curated in terms of how I put music out and a bit more thoughtful about things. But in the last year, I was like, the way I made music was very spontaneous. So if I'm feeling very depressed about certain things, I would have to turn it into music, you know? And when I finished it, that was when the emotions in the song was the most raw and the most relatable, because I just finished the song. I'm still in that zone. Whereas if I finish the song and wait like 2-3 months, I might not be in the same emotional position as I was when I actually like was in that moment of making the track. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that seems exciting for us as listeners. It seems exciting if we know that about you, that it feels like like we
current.
Get closer to you.
Yeah,
like this is how she's feeling now, and now we get to touch that in a way, and it's like it's neat. People can feel like they go through things with you a little bit more.
Yeah. And I don't like intentionally put it out to be a bit more relatable to people, but
sure.
I feel like I can put more of myself into talking about the essence of the music and being more proactive about talking about it, and putting it out to people if it's more concurrent with how I'm feeling in the state of my mind.
Yeah, it's a byproduct of what you are like. Your nature at this point in your life is to, it sounds like it a little bit is to like, hey, when I'm feeling it, I'm invested emotionally and mentally. And so let's get it out there because I'm excited about it. And as a byproduct, we, the listener, get to be like, hey, we're with you on this journey. And that's fun for us as well as just hearing your music. But that's super neat. And especially with today's, and this isn't new, but you can just release music whenever you want. You don't have to wait for a full album. Anyone can.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Like, I said the other day, like, we can like put this podcast as an album, like turn it into some song. It doesn't even have to be a song. We could literally put this episode out and slice it up into a few minutes, and we could put that out as an album.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy.
No one's stopping us from doing that.
We just have to pay a few quid.
Yeah.
Pay a few bucks.
What a freedom that is.
Do you have any plans to release any music?
Oh no.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
Do I have any plans to maybe pick up an instrument and try to learn it? Yes. But I was just talking with someone yesterday about this. Because who was I talking with about this? But we were talking about music, and who was I talking to? And they talked about how he had made music and played, I think it was guitar. The guy I was shooting with, the director, he was saying how he like plays guitar and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I wish I could do that. And he was like, you can learn that. I'm like, I know I can do that. I get that. But I do want to do that. I have neighbors in my apartment building, so I don't want to necessarily subject them to me learning an instrument. But
it's not pretty. It's not pretty. I gotta admit, it's not pretty.
No, I try to think about like the quietest, like what's the quietest instrument I can play? I guess I could get a keyboard and then use headphones. That feels like the quietest thing I can do. What do you play? What instruments?
I sadly don't play the guitar. I wish I could. It sounds lovely. I wish.
We all do.
Yeah, I know. But I play the keys. I play the piano and the cello.
Whoa.
Those two are, I know it's a bit random, but I have been like classically trained. I was brought up being classically trained. So cello was, I would say like I'm a little more confident in playing the cello than the piano, which is ironic because the keys are my main kind of instrument now, being a singer, being a singer-songwriter.
Two things. One, I feel like piano is like, that's one of the bedrocks. Like if you're going to learn instruments to be a musician, I feel like piano, if there was like a list, like here are the top 5, piano's got to be number 1, right?
Yeah, piano and the guitar, I would say those two, like the most common, I would say.
For sure.
Yeah.
Did you fight through, I took piano lessons when I was a kid, and after like 2 years, I was such a jerk about it when I was a kid. Because I got home from school one day and there was a note from my mom that was like, that said like, you have piano lessons at 5 p.m. Go with your sister. And I was so mad because I had no say in it. Did you, growing up playing cello, playing piano, did you at any point fight back against it? Did you not want to do it? Were you angry about it? Or were you always like, I'm into this, I like this?
Well, I was going to say your mom sounds very Korean because my mom did the same thing where she was like, you're going to this lesson and period. You've got no say in it. I was also really scared of my mom because I was like, I don't know, what if I get whooped? But
same.
Yeah, but I think it was more like, I don't think I was ever like crazy opposed to it. Like you were, like I wasn't ever like angry about it. I was a very I was a very good child. I said yeah. I was a yes child, you know, like yes mom, yes mother, and I just did it, you know, just by default. So, but I'm kind of glad that I was, you know, I'm kind of glad that my mom was that strict traditional Korean mom who just like threw me in like all the classes that she could possibly throw me into. And I'm grateful for it, having, you know, experienced all that, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to be talking with you right now, speaking English like that. I just credit my mom 100%. English.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wish I'd stayed with it. Of course, like every kid who quits an instrument when they're older, they wish they'd stuck with it. Similarly, when I was a kid and my mom and dad were like, hey, do you want to, your teeth are crooked. Do you want to get braces? And I was like, no.
Oh, yes.
No. Because I didn't want to be embarrassed or whatever. and then I end up getting braces when I was like in my late 20s out of my own pocket.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh, my teeth are crooked. I don't want that anymore.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, Dave, you should have just done it with your parents asked you to do it.
For
and
free,
they
man.
would
For
have paid
free.
it. Yes, it would have been under their insurance. I would have been fine. But I was such a baby about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would love to get braces. It's just not a common thing in Korea. Like when you're a kid, it's just like people realize later on that it's good to have had braces.
You can get it. You can get it when you're
I can
older.
get it, I guess. I can get like, but I don't know. I don't like the look of it. But maybe I can.
They look crazy. They look crazy. Yeah. My niece wanted to get them. She's like, I can't wait to get them. And I was like,
yeah, they do kind of.
That attitude.
I feel like it's also it's like in this kind of era, it's kind of almost, I guess I could say like it's edgy, I guess, to be like the fugly style, you know, like just intentionally
specific.
Ugly. It's fashion. It's
fashion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And plus now you can get, I got braces when I was in my late 20s, and I know this is not what this podcast is about. And then I stopped wearing my retainer for a few years. And so again, in my late 30s, I was like,
wait, you got braces again?
I didn't get braces, but I got like, do you know Invisalign?
Yes, I know. I do.
So I got Invisalign, and
those are expensive.
I had to fork over money a second time. It was so stupid. Like, get braces when you're a kid. Keep wearing the retainers. If your listeners take anything from this podcast, it's get braces when you're a kid and wear retainers.
Stick to your retainers. Yeah.
Stick to your retainers.
Please do. I mean, I know you're not a dentist, but do you wear, do one have to wear retainers like for the rest of their lives? Or
Yeah.
is it like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, really?
Forever. Unless you
Oh.
get something that's like permanent, like something behind your teeth, like a
Oh,
brace.
inside. Yes, I've seen one of those.
Yeah,
One of
so
those. It's
people
like a
can
little
do that.
line.
Yeah. But otherwise, if you get braces, I mean, some people are blessed with like straight teeth and just never have to. And some people just
Yeah.
don't care, so they don't have to. But if you get braces, you got to wear your retainer after that. And it's not a big deal. You truly, they're totally different now. They're just like Invisalign that I just wear to bed. So people don't, if I'm out in public, you probably don't notice that I even have them.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I've heard, Invisalign.
They're great.
Yeah. I heard
Yeah.
that you bite into a mold of like rubber, and that's
Yeah.
how they like make
Yeah.
your
That part's not fun.
scheme. Oh, is it not?
Uh-huh.
I was
I mean, you
always
just got
curious.
this weird thing. Yeah, you definitely want to try it, but once it's in your mouth, you're like, all right,
Does
let's
it
get this
taste
out
like
of my mouth.
anything?
Yeah, but it tastes just like some kind of, I don't, when it's in your mouth, you're like, yeah, this is what it tastes like. I get why this tastes like this. But I can't describe it as anything. I'm sure they
I
probably
saw
try to
it come-
flavor it to something, but
Ooh.
it just doesn't. It tastes like something that shouldn't be in your mouth.
I always imagined it would kind of feel something like if you were to bite into silly putty or something.
Yeah,
That would-
it's
yeah.
gotta be. That's gotta be a
okay.
similar thing.
Okay,
for
yeah, I've
sure.
never tried it, obviously, for obvious reasons. But yeah, that's what I imagined it to be. But actually, coming back to like all the lessons that we used to take as kids,
Uh-huh.
I know I said that I was a yes kid, but that doesn't mean that I stuck to everything. I do remember now, talking about it, that there were quite a few instrument classes that I was like aggressively opposed to, actually.
Like what?
I tried the violin before I tried the cello, and the flute, and I was
Okay.
just like all over the place. I hated both of them. I just hated it.
Why did you hate the violin but you like the cello?
I don't know. I think it might have been the techniques, maybe not so much as the sound of it. I like both of them. The sound, like I
Yeah.
love the sound of the violin and the versatility of it, like how high it can go and stuff. And like the pieces, I feel like the violin pieces are a lot more epic and beautiful sometimes.
Yeah.
And you can do a lot with like the speed of it and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just remember hating like holding it up and just like, oh, it's really uncomfortable. Like my chin's like crumpled up into this piece of wood. I hate
Yeah.
it. Whereas like the cello, it's like it's all about comfort, and it's like hugging it. It's like hugging, and the more comfortable you are holding the cello, the better. Whereas the violin, it just felt more forced for me. So I
Yeah.
was like, no. And the flute, I just couldn't get sound out. Period.
No, I couldn't either.
That's
I've
why I
tried it and I
quit.
couldn't do it.
Yeah. It's like I don't know how these people make it look so seamless. Yeah, it's just like.
But if you're gonna travel, that's the
Oh,
instrument you want.
Yes. Oh, the cello is like the worst thing you want to
The
travel
worst.
with.
The
I've
worst.
done it, and you don't want to do it again. Oh my gosh, it's so bad. Whereas like the flute, you can just like put it in a little mini case and you're good to go.
You're good to go. And even the violin is pretty small.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just like a little like it's smaller than a guitar, so it's like
Yeah.
you can do it. I'm so jealous of that. That is
too.
actually that is the part that I'm the most jealous about violinists and flutists.
Yeah, the convenience factor.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about
No,
acting?
let's do it. Let's do it. I know. I'm sorry.
I'm just genuinely curious, like what happens? I'm sure it differs, like depending on the projects and the vibe that producers and directors like to kind of bring into the audition room. But what happens in auditions?
What happens in auditions?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you the gist of it, at least as far as my experience goes. So,
Yes, please.
like you and I are talking right now. So we get done with this podcast. I check my email, and there might be an email from my manager, and it says, "Hey, you got an audition." And let's say we're in normal times where you're doing it in person. That'll be the example I give. So the audition's it's like, "Hey, you got this audition. It is for if today is what day is today? Wednesday? What day are we in?
Wednesday for me, Tuesday
Tuesday
for you.
for me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's Tuesday for me. So hey, you got an audition. The audition's on, let's say Thursday.
Yeah.
The email will give me, here's what the project is. It's this TV show. Here's who is casting it. Here who is producing it, directing it. Maybe it might have like, here's the leads of it. Maybe it doesn't have it, depending how well known this TV show is.
Yeah.
Here is your character breakdown. So you're going in for Bill the bartender. Here's the kind of character they want. They want him. He's kind of dour. He's maybe a little bit mad or about something in his life, and he has to deal with these customers. They'll give you like maybe the plot of what the show is, and then they'll also give you what they call the sides or your lines that they want for this audition. They might even give you the whole script so that you have a better understanding of what the world is. So then I will take that script, I'll print it off, and I will just run it a bunch. I'll run it a bunch. I will record, let's say it's a 3-page script. I will record the other person's lines on my iPhone, and I'll be like, I'll do page 1, and I'll re-record page 1 and 2, and I'll re-record page 1, 2, and 3. And I'll just take it like 1 page at a time until I've got it all down. Maybe I'll get some coaching on it. I go to like an acting class that I go to, and I'll call them and be like, hey, could I run this with someone and get some just input on if I'm doing this right or wrong? So I'll go meet them, and I'll maybe run for an hour with them or whatnot if I feel like I really need help with it. If I don't, I won't do that. And then when Thursday comes, I'll go to this casting office. There's a bunch of them in Los Angeles, which is where I am. Yeah. Might be in Santa Monica, might be in Hollywood, might be in Sherman Oaks in the Valley where Truman is from, our friend and producer. And I'll go there and I'll get in the room, and maybe I've seen these people before. Maybe they've seen me. Maybe they've never seen me. And depending on the day, the time, what they want, what they need, I'll go in there, and they'll have one person with a camera, and then usually another person that will read the opposite lines of my lines, and they'll just record me, and maybe I'll get one shot at it. Maybe they'll give me 2 or 3. They might say, all right,
like a little
let's do that again. Yeah, could you be a little bit more mad or a little more happy? Or they might say, let's do it again. That was great or bad. And they might just say, let's do it again and do whatever you want. If you got some other ideas, do what you want, depending on the situation. And then, in general, after that, that's it. And 99% of the time, if not 100%, you'll know it. You'll know you booked it if they call you and tell you booked it, or your manager. But if they went with someone else, they just don't contact you at all. Right. Sometimes your manager or your agent might reach out to them and say, hey, do you got any feedback on that? Did you already cast it? And they might say, Dave did great, or not what we're looking for. We went in a different direction, or whatever the excuses are for whatever reason. But most of the time, you hear nothing unless you actually booked it. It's just on to the next.
Oh, and the waiting game, though, that does sounds like a bit of a rough thing, just like not knowing.
You have to put it out of your mind. You have to. It's weird at first, but it's once you get into the rigmarole of it, and once you get into the routine of it. Yeah. If you're fortunate enough to get a few auditions, go out a lot for auditions, then it's quickly like, that one's over. I'm done with it. I move on to the next. Mm-hmm. And hopefully you're doing it so regularly that when your manager calls you and says, hey, you booked this thing, and you could go, what was that again? Which one was that? Oh, wow, yeah. That's the hope. That means you're going out a lot. And sometimes you book them, but even the biggest, not the biggest, they don't even have to audition anymore. But for most people, it's you're missing way more than you're hitting. Yeah. Yeah, it's just the way it goes.
I mean, that is a bit of a topic that I wanted to touch upon, rejection. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's almost like I heard that's the daily, part of being an actor, right? Being rejected more than being accepted. And it's like,
it's hard.
In a way, it does feel like it's more brutal that you don't even get to know if you're rejected or not like from what you just said, how they never tell you if you got the part or not. But do you remember, like, if there was, like, at first it was rougher, it was just harder to just accept it, or was it like just always you had that expectation?
Yeah, good question. So when I moved out to LA, I was
Yeah.
already in my 30s. I got a late start into the acting game. I had a day job in Wisconsin. I was doing improv and sketch comedy on the nights and weekends. But at that point, and maybe you can relate to this a little bit, is like at that point, to me, Hollywood, Los Angeles, it wasn't like a real thing where real people lived and real people did real acting. Like
It was
that,
La La
it
Land.
might as well have been La La Land. It might as well
Yeah,
have been,
yeah.
a completely false Neverland scenario
Yeah.
that's just made up, right? But I had a couple friends who moved out to LA and they did stuff, and I'm like, oh, they're doing it, and they used to live where I live, and they used to do what I did, and they can do it. But even then, I was like, but they're so much funnier, and they're so much better, and they're so much more talented. But eventually, I moved out to LA in my early 30s and started auditioning. So it probably wasn't as crushing as it may have been if I was a younger person in my 20s,
Right.
but I got used to this is just the name of the game pretty quickly. And I think, and this is the thing I say a lot, yes, there's a ton of rejection, and it doesn't feel great. And you have to have a good attitude, and you have to have friends and family who love you and care and all that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not, but it's also, you're not in a coal mine, it's not like you're digging ditches somewhere. I go to a place, I get to be creative and fun. And if I don't book it, okay.
At least you had some fun.
Yeah, it's not backbreaking work or
Yeah.
anything. But the thing, and maybe you can relate to this with music, is the thing that I tell people is acting to me, comedy to me it's like, and probably music is like this. It's different than any other job that there is. It's different than any other career, but it's also exactly the same as every other career. Whatever you have to do to be good at being an accountant or a nurse or a school teacher, whatever those traits are, whatever gets you to the top of your accounting firm or your school as a teacher or whatever, is probably the same thing that works with music and comedy and acting. That's just like, you got to show up, you got to put in your best effort, you got to have a good attitude, and you have to have some measure of talent,
Right.
some measure of ability. But I use the three. For me, it's always the three A's. Is the triple A that I try to remember. It's like attitude. I just gotta have a good attitude. Any job wants that. Any job wants someone who has a good attitude and is positive, right? I gotta have the attendance. I gotta show up if they want you.
Yes.
I gotta show up. I gotta be there, and I gotta be there with a good attitude. Just like if you're gonna try to get ahead of business, like you gotta put in the time even when you don't want to. You gotta work overtime. You gotta schlep around and do jobs you don't want to do, but you got to have the attendance. And then you have to have the ability. You have to have some kind of talent. If you have any two of those three, you have to have all three, but you really have to have at least two of them that you're pretty good at. And then the third one, you got to be okay at it, but you got to have two of the three, in my opinion. It doesn't matter which three, but you got to have three of them. And so if you don't think you're that, if someone doesn't think, I'm not that funny, I'm not that good of a singer, I'm not that good of an actor. Okay, well, it's a lot of people. A lot of people aren't that good as singers or actors or comedians. But like, if you show up, if you have a good attitude and you try your best, you'll probably get further than you think. Maybe you're not going to be Rascal Flatts. Maybe you're not going to be Coldplay, because they also have like other intangibles, right? They're super elicitable. They're super watchable. And not everyone has that magnetic quality that some of those people have. But you can probably get okay at this and probably get pretty good at it if you just do the same thing that gets you ahead in any job or really any relationship that you have. Apply those things that make for good relationships and good employees, and you can probably do just about anything you want.
I think I partially agree to that in that.
Okay.
Well, I'm not arguing with you or anything.
No,
but
I love it. I
do feel like I don't know enough about being an actor as much as I do about being a musician, because obviously I like to think of myself as a musician, still a baby one,
Sure.
but I feel like the nature of being an artist heavily relies also on luck. And by that, I mean, like, anyone can make music, anyone can create art, but can you actually make a living out of it? Can you actually sustain your life with it? I think that's a different question. And I don't know about actors, because maybe you can be a job actor, not like a superstar actor who's like, you know, like always on the red carpets and have paparazzis following you everywhere. Maybe you can still be just acting and not be a superstar level and still be able to sustain a living. Whereas I feel like a musician, it's like hit or miss. Like, you get that first break or that first strike, then after that you can maybe earn a bit of living to sustain your career, but up until that point you have this like uncertainty if you can actually turn this into a career, you know. And that was I felt the same way. And my first kind of quote unquote mini break was completely just uncalled for. Like, it was just completely out. It just came out of nowhere, and I did not see it coming. Had it not been for that event, I would still be doing, you know, like putting out music to 35 people, 35 monthly listeners, you know? And I feel like it's just, yes, there was like, you know, I put effort in, I was there, I was working like from 7 till like midnight every single day. And, you know, I dedicated myself to it. But if I didn't have luck, then I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't have any monthly like listenership.
I couldn't agree more. I 100% agree that good fortune plays a huge part in it. And for me too. But I gotta, in my mind, I think, okay, like your example, you're saying like you're working, you know, morning till night. So the attendance doesn't have to fit into my 3A theory here, but like your attendance is still like putting you in a position where luck will find you, right? Like they say, like there's a saying also like you got to create your own luck, and like you do it by like working hard and being in the position to where luck, which is definitely a factor, will present itself. But it's not like you were, hey, I'm doing one thing a month for my career. No, you're like doing stuff like a lot more. And so then the more you, in my mind, at least this is what I'm hopeful for this. Maybe I'm just telling myself this to soothe my own like insecurities about my own career. But I think the harder I work at it, the more I'll have lucky breaks, and the more I'll have chances at this thing that I like doing. And then the more I'll be prepared to take advantage when that luck comes around. Like you were in a position where because you've been working hard at it, you're in a position to take some kind of advantage of it, would be my guess. Even though it's still scary when that moment comes, you're like, am I ready? Do I know what I'm doing? But you've done some amount of work that you can capitalize on that lucky break. Because like the luck happens for all of us probably, or a lot of us. But if you're not ready for it because you haven't been putting in the work, then you're going to squander that opportunity, right? That's going to go away. Yeah.
I 100% agree. It's like, I like to say it as like throw out as many baits as possible.
Yeah.
Not like baits to like, you know, like lure people or anything, but just baits for opportunities. You're just doing shit. You're just keep doing shit until you nail something comes out of that. And the other one just explodes alongside, you know? It's all
the
just
more you
building
shoot, the
up.
more you hit, right?
Oh, yeah.
The more shots you take in basketball, the more baskets you're going to make. So you just got to keep, the more bullets you fire, the more you're about to hit something. You just got to keep firing. And like you said, most of them are going to miss.
Yes.
But, you know, one of them is going to hit. And you look at any artist, and I'm guessing, with the exception of like that rare time when you hear about like an actor where they're like, I was just eating at a diner and this director discovered me. Like that's like 1 in a billion. But 9 times out of 10, it's like, hey, here's this newcomer. They're new to the scene. Sure, they're new to the world, but like they've been
building it up.
Small parts. They've
the
been,
longest
in
time.
your case, they've been playing small clubs, doing small gigs. They got a ton of music under their belt. We're all just seeing them now finally, but there's a bedrock of effort already put in.
And that's probably how everyone got to hear about that person, just through words
Yeah.
of mouth. Just like, you were there and some people got to know about you. That person talked to other person about you and, so on and so forth.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Actually, now that we've discussed it, I feel like it's like, because the reason why I asked you about like rejection and how you cope with it is because I have that massive like fear within me where, and I still do, like if I put out a song, what if it doesn't do as well? And that has definitely happened.
Yeah.
But it's like, what can I do? What I
can you
can
do?
I've got nothing else to do other than just look forward and just keep on running. That's the best I can do.
If nothing else, for your mental health, right? Like,
Yes.
that's. I feel like that's the main reason I try to keep working hard, is that because those rejections, they hurt. They don't feel
Yes.
good. When you turn out a song, or if I do something if I work for a day on set and I can feel like I flubbed my lines, the director didn't like me. That'll kill me. That'll eat away at me if I let it. So I gotta like,
Keep on
I gotta
moving.
go. I gotta do another show. I gotta do another audition. I've got to write something just to get rid of that crummy feeling and just keep moving.
Yes, I agree, because I find myself like sometimes when when you dwell on, it's like it's so much easier said than done though, because like
Yeah.
being an overthinker, being that person who just like
Yeah.
resents everything, it's so easy. It's so easy to dwell on the stuff that gives you pain. But it's like, it's like through these kinds of conversations where you like continuously remind yourself that the only way for you to move on is to move on, actually. Just keep on running. And
Easier said than done, of course.
easier said than done, for sure. But if you do think about it if you see it from a perspective that, look, you can work harder, you can do new projects as a way to cope with rejection. That's one way. But if you think about it in a way that by doing more, that's advancing your career, that's another way of looking at it. It's like catching two birds with one stone. Like, you will be moving forward in terms of your career, and also you'll be able to get over the whatever rejection that you got beforehand.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, and not that. And I want to remember 2 points to make here. Like, one is not that you just want to like bury yourself in your work, because that in some ways, that we both know, like, that'll come back and haunt you too. Like, we have to like learn how to deal with our rejections and how to like, process that, right? We can't just like go past it. But here's the 2 things. So one is, the first thing I'll say is like, and this is something that I'm not great at, and has been a long time issue that I'm working on, is like to have a well-rounded life. So when things aren't going well in one category, you have other things to compensate for them. I read this book. There's this comedian. His name is Martin Short. He's this older comedian. He's been in a ton of movies. He's big time, but he has a biography and autobiography, and he said that he used to, I don't know if he does it anymore, but he used to have like a report card that he would look at, I forget, let's say once a week, once a month, something like that. And this report card would be like, work, these categories: work, creativity, mental health, physical health, relationships, whatever. And he would like give himself in whatever the American grades are, A, B, C, D, F, for how good you are. And he would go through it and he'd be like, all right, work, A, I did this movie or whatever. Creativity, yeah, I wrote a sketch or whatever. That's going well. Physical health, I haven't really done any exercise lately. That's a D, whatever. My family
F
life.
for me.
F for you. Right.
Sometimes.
Me too.
We try.
But then you can look at it and be like, oh, where do I need to improve? And then it not only does this give you like moments to go, oh, I need to like pick that up because I'm doing a D on that. But you could also go, all right, there's a D on my physical health, but hey, these other parts of my life are going well. Things are okay. I got some perspective on this. This part's not good, but the other parts are okay. And that's great to have a well-rounded life. Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket is what they say. I'm not good at that. I want to be good at that, but I'm currently not good at that. And work rejections have a bigger effect on me than I want them to have. I don't know if you feel like that, or if you feel like you have a well-rounded life.
Big time. You have no idea how much that just hit me in the feels. It's just like, it's so easy to get into that tunnel vision where it's like, it's from a good cause. You're passionate about what you're doing. You want to succeed. You want to get better. But once you get, above the certain point, you cross the line and you get to a point where you just got such a narrow point of vision that you just can't look. You don't have a healthy perspective of life. And that grading card, that report card for life, that actually reminded me of, I don't know if you've heard this Japanese philosophy called ikigai, where it's exactly that. They have this actual terminology called ikigai, where true happiness from life, true fulfillment in life comes not from succeeding in just one area of life, but the healthy balance of all things. And they've got like graphs for it, and they've got like it's pretty much exactly what you said with that report card, relationships, family life, love life, your career. You can't count that out. It's there, but it's all about balance. And the reason why you may not be happy may not actually because you're failing in your career, but because there's an imbalance between all these things in your life. But you just fail to realize it most of the time. You just think it's because you're not doing well with your career. It's because you've got too much rejection. You're not doing well. You're feeling stagnant. That's what people, myself included, might think more often than not, when in reality, the reason may be because there's an imbalance.
Yeah, I get too much in my head where I'm like, if I could just book this thing, if I could just do better at this in this show, then everything will be fine. But it's not fine because I can't. That's like putting pressure on, like one of your friends. Like if you have a friend and you're calling them every day, want to hang out? And at some point they're gonna be like, buddy,
no, man.
You gotta call some other friends. You gotta talk to someone else. I can't be responsible for your happiness. I can't be solely responsible for that. And I feel like that's what my career is often telling me. Like, Dave, you gotta go hang out with your friends, man. Yeah. So I after tonight, later on, I'm gonna go to my friend's house and watch some basketball and just chill with my friends because I just haven't seen them in a minute, and just to bring up that my social grade. I got to improve that grade a little bit. So I got to do better at all that. Do you find that you have to do better in certain areas?
Oh, relationships, big time. For me, I have no friends in Korea. I keep saying this, and it's it's really sad. I have all my friends back in the UK where I finished my degree, and I actually talked to them yesterday, on FaceTime. But it's just not the same when you're just chilling down and on the couch watching a movie together, eating popcorn and having some drinks together. It's just
that
not the
energy,
same.
Right? There's an energy from human, whether you're touching them or not. There's an energy that I get desperate for, especially what the pandemic has shown a bright light on what my weaknesses are, and one of them is you got to hang out with your friends more, and you need to hang out with people more because it's critical for your mental well-being and your physical well-being.
And
for me,
it's and it's I found myself that I'm at a place where I've deteriorated in terms of my social skills. I have very occasional far in between occasions where I actually do get to meet people in real life, for work, mostly for work, for meetings. And I find myself oh my gosh, how do I say hi? How do I do I make eye contact? Am I making too much of an intense eye contact? You forget about these things. because
Am I the weirdo?
Yes, like, should I hug or should I, like, what? Am I walking correctly? Like, all these things, all these body languages that you share when you're interacting with somebody in person, it's just not the same. And I feel like, having worked in my room for the last year, meeting my management, like, I haven't even met Truman in person yet. Hopefully soon, but
Soon.
it's like, I'm gonna be awkward. I expect myself to be awkward now that, like, I have no human contact. I have,
but that's just like the thing we're talking about, as far as, like, the more bait you throw out there, the more you're bound to catch something. Like, oh, if I just interact with other people more often, then each interaction will become less precious, and I won't worry about it when it doesn't go perfectly, because another one's coming right around the corner. I just have to do it more. I have to write more things. I have to act more, or put myself in position to do that. I have to hang out with my friends more, because then the luck of a good hang, or the luck of a good laugh with my friends, will be increased, just because I'm giving it more opportunities.
Yes.
Just gotta do it
like
more.
what we said about careers. It's just like throwing as many baits out there.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Do you, going back to the rejection, I just don't want to forget this. Not that artists or creatives are the only ones who are sensitive, because that's not true at all, of course. But I feel like musicians are often, same actors too, because I feel like they have to access emotions and feelings for their job of making music, singing songs, writing lyrics, acting different characters. I feel like they have to have more access to these emotions. And I feel like that's often a huge positive, to get more in touch with yourself. But also, when it comes to rejection, because you do access those emotions more regularly and more easily, that the rejections sometimes hit harder, because those emotions are so close to the surface for you. Do you find that because you've been writing now, and you said you haven't been writing all that long, but you're still writing and you're still creating songs, do you feel like you've gotten more sensitive?
Worse.
I don't know. Has it gotten worse? Or
I actually cannot deny that, because it's like you said, you feel it harder. You have to feel it harder for the sake of your job, to do your job better as an actor, as a singer-songwriter, as a musician. You have to elevate what's already there to a point where you can actually make something out of it. So you have to exaggerate it. You have to feel it harder. You have to hone into it. And, what I honed into and what I think a lot of other artists hone into more are the negative ones more often than the positive ones. It's the heartbreak songs, the relationships gone wrong, and, in my case, just my deteriorating mental health. You feel it harder, and I have to admit, it doesn't do me good sometimes, because I am naturally an overthinker, and I want to fix that sometimes. Considering, it's kind of ironic that we're recording an Overthinker Society, but it's like, at least in terms of my personal emotions and personal life, there are times when I do want to overthink less. But I can't, because I got to write songs, man. I got to write songs about it. So it's like, I'm at a position where I'm trying to find that balance where I can, like, I'm almost training myself to kind of almost be training myself where I can put, like, it's kind of like a switch where I turn on the switch. I can just solely dedicate the next hour and a half on, like, just elevating feelings and emotions and just really honing into it. I'll allow myself that window to feel pain, to feel whatever shit that's going on in my head. But then I'll be able to switch off and try to take a step back and not feel as sensitively as much. You know what I mean? I'm trying. I'm trying.
Okay.
But I feel like in time, if I get better, it's going to do me a lot of benefit. It's going to have a lot of benefits.
Yeah, if you can compartmentalize that like that, and if you can turn it on and off, I mean, that sounds like a superpower.
It does.
that I would love to have.
At the
I would love
moment
that.
for me as well.
Yeah.
But it's
I gotta imagine. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, I was going to say, like, you know, like one of those actors where it's like everybody, like, they're constantly in character. It's like when I mean, I've never acted. I've never been an actor, so I don't know what it's like on set, actually. But, you know, you hear about those actors who are like 24/7 in character when they're shooting. And it's like even when the cameras are off. Yes, maybe it may do some good on the performance, but it's gotta
Exhausting?
have, yes,
For everyone, for
take
the
a
actor
toll
and
on
for everyone
your
around them.
mentality. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Not just
Yeah.
for yourself. I don't want to be that. I don't want to
No.
be that artist who's like always honed in, always zoned into
No.
this stuff. It's
I
not.
would imagine not. But my guess is, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, and this is me just guessing how you work. I feel like when I think about people who are songwriters, I think, okay, they're probably writing when you're feeling the depths of despair, like a huge emotional downturn, or you're feeling like super great. Like, I feel like those moments are when you're like, I need to write a song about how crummy I'm feeling, or I need to write a song about how great I feel right now. But when you're just kind of at normal, where you're like, everything's fine, the day is just rolling along, this is whatever. I'm not happy, I'm not sad, I'm just here. Like that, which is where we spend a lot of our time.
Yes, the meh days.
The meh days.
Yes.
That feels like the hardest part to write a song, because you're not feeling much of anything. And maybe, like you're saying, if you could flip that switch on, like, I need to start feeling some more, I'm going to turn that on a little bit, turn it off. Like, do you find that it feels like you got to have access to those emotions, because otherwise you ain't going to, in my mind, like, you're not going to write anything, because no one's writing from a meh position.
Yeah. I think that's where musicians differ from actors, because actors, they have to be in the moment. Yeah. Like when you're acting, you're in that, you're feeling it. You're in that character. Whereas I guess in that sense, I've gotten better at this like whole switching on and off thing, where when I'm feeling super down, like super depressed, first of all, I can't write songs because I'm feeling so shitty to a point where I can't move at all.
You don't want to
right?
do anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
And before I would just like write it anyways. Like I would just push myself, and it wasn't doing me any good. Like it was not healthy. But now I am at a point where I can, like, I'd be feeling shitty and I just hum out some random lyrics that just pop up into my head, into my phone recorder. That's it for the day. And then I'd wait till my ecstatic days. That's when I actually write my saddest songs.
Okay.
Because it's like I can channel back into the recordings that I made on my shitty days. And then I can make a little more sense because I've got a bit more of a clarity of mind and I'm focused. I've consumed a lot of caffeine and I'm feeling great. I can just like focus more rather than like just, you know, crying my eyes
Yeah, you're
out.
not devastated.
Yeah, so I guess I'm like musicians are at a, like they can just kind of compartmentalize a little better than actors who I guess have to just always be in that character and feeling it on cue.
Right. There's a book. This reminds me of a book. And maybe you've read it. There's this book out there called The War of Art. And it's by this guy who writes movies. He wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance, which had Will Smith. It's this old book. Anyways, I like that. It's small. It's easy to read. And he's talking, the main crux of the books is he's talking about resistance and how you just need to overcome resistance. And that's how you can get through these blocks of creativity or whatnot.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring it up is when we're talking about this kind of like, hey, how do you feel inspired to write? It's these emotional highs, lows, meh days. When are you feeling inspired to write? But he was quoting someone else. I forget who this person is, but this person kind of pushed back against writing only when you're inspired. And instead, hey, write during those meh days too.
Yeah.
You got to write all those times. And he goes, I write when I'm inspired. Fortunately, I'm inspired every day at 7 a.m. And so his thing is always just like at 7 a.m. or whatever the time is, 10 a.m., 3 p.m. Every day Whether I want to write or don't want to write, I'm writing at that time for 2 hours, an hour, 3 hours, whatever it is. It's like clockwork, like punching into a day job. I'm writing for 3 hours, whether I have anything or not. I just have to write something. And out of that, I'll get inspired, or I'll have those moments of luck just because I'm putting in the time. There's also another saying. I'm just throwing a bunch of sayings who can't credit them to, but there's another one that says like mood follows action, or motivation follows action. Oh, I don't feel like going for a run today. Just start running and you'll get into it. Oh, I don't feel like writing today. Just start doing it and the motivation will follow. The mood will follow the action versus I got to wait till I'm inspired. No, move, you'll get inspired. So I try to remember that. I'm not great at it, but I try to remember that when I don't feel like doing something where I'm like, I gotta wait until I'm ready. No.
Yeah, I gotta wait till I'm inspired. But it's like, no, I completely get that. It's like Pavlovian reaction where you're like almost like detaching yourself from your body and your brain even, where you're like, okay, well, I don't care if you're feeling tired. I don't care if you're feeling sad or depressed. You're going out. You're doing this, that.
Yeah. You'll get happier once you're out with friends. You don't feel like it now, but that'll change now. The routine is almost, for a lot of us, even creatives, it's the routine that's more important than anything else. It's the doing it all constantly, and then everything else kind of follows.
Yeah, and suit. I think for me, like the method, the kind of shortcut, if you will, that I've found that works quite well for me is like just make, like schedule it. So that you're holding yourself accountable rather than like, oh, I might go out for a walk tomorrow. I might, but I don't really have to because I don't have plans. Whereas if you're like, okay, we're meeting for basketball to watch basketball tonight, 9 p.m., you got to get out because otherwise you're going to be a shitty friend, right? Yeah,
you're accountable. Like for you, is that hard because you're a solo artist? Mm-hmm. Is that hard because ultimately it's just you? Like,
it's hard.
No one else is,
it's hard
waiting on you.
And yeah, it's so hard because I'm also like one of those people who are just too shy to like hang out. I like being asked to hang out. I'm just like, I love it when people ask me to go out for drinks. Like I wait for it. I'm like, I'm giving them the googly eyes. Like, please ask me for drinks. And they never ask because like sometimes you gotta be the one being proactive. And
Meanwhile, they're also going, please ask me. Please ask me.
Yes, exactly. We're all like waiting for the same thing. So like, I gotta take the action, but just being the shy person, I just can't. But
it's hard.
Yeah, that's what I actually have been reminding myself and trying to do more of recently, of just asking people how they're doing because people love that, because I love it when I get one of those messages like, hey, I thought about you the other day watching this movie or something. Like, how are you doing? I just wanted to check in and,
Oh, it's the best. And you're so, I'm so, especially over this quarantine pandemic, I've learned, I'm like, man, I love it when my friends text me or call or just like check in. I'm like, how great. Oh, I got to do that to other people because that feels good. Even if I don't feel like doing it, but like once you do it, once you check with someone else, like you feel better.
Yes.
You're glad you did. You're like, I'm a good friend. Even if it's like a selfish motivation of like, I just want to feel better that I've done something for someone else. We all hear that charity and doing things for other people will make you feel better, and it's true. It's totally true.
Oh yeah, everything is kind of like motivated from self-interest. We can't deny that. But it's like one of those things that also like if I think it all like it has that base of like that fear of rejection as well. Like oh my gosh, what if that person like ignores my message or something. But it's
doesn't text back. It's awful.
Yeah, it's your loss, I think that's the mindset that we all need to have in like just a bit of a savageness in us. Easier said than done again.
Easier said than done. But we got to text more people then. That's another thing. Like I just got to text more than one. So when one person doesn't reply, then it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, we got to just like stay connected. I suck at staying connected. I suck at keeping in touch. Yeah, but I try to get better because I like having people around. I like touching, I like connections.
Do you live, this might be too personal. You don't have to answer this. Mm-hmm. Do you live with other people?
I live with my mom.
Okay. Pros and
We
cons, I would imagine.
but a little more cons sometimes it feels, but
Sure.
it's good, and it's like, it's weird. This is a cultural difference for sure, but
Mhm.
there's this I heard from my American friends, or like my friends in the UK, where it's like there's this stigma around living with parents when you're past certain age, like, oh, you're
Yeah.
still living with your parents and stuff. It's not so much, there's not so much of that here in Korea,
No.
which is very strange. It's a very big like cultural difference, I find. But
Huge.
usually, yeah, but there's not too much stigma around like with living with your parents, especially when you're like female, which is weird. It's like it's kind of typical for girls to live with their parents until they're married or something. And that's when they like truly, for the first time in their lives, move out of the house. Unless you're like going to like college dorms and stuff.
Right.
But it's like your home base is still with your parents.
Yeah.
So I don't find it too weird living with my mom, but I do miss being independent sometimes. Just having my own kitchen,
course.
having my own place.
Of course.
Bringing people
It's a Western.
over.
It's a Western versus like I know. I feel like I've read this too. Like Western culture, Eastern culture. Western, there's a more individualized.
Yes.
That's the thing that is promoted and valued, or right. We give more value over the individual accomplishments versus the collective.
Yeah.
Which is also obviously wonderful. And in my opinion, we probably all have to move a little bit more toward the collective in certain ways. I think there's benefit in that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, well, pros and cons again.
Of course.
It's, I see in movies and stuff where like college hits, you're alone. You're out of the house, man. You're going out, you're going your own way. And oh
Yeah.
my gosh, for me it's like, oh my God, you're like alone? For like it's just it's a bit of a, maybe I just sound like a baby saying this, but it's
No.
like I'm still very dependent on my parents, especially my mom. Not so much like financially, but like
Yeah.
very much emotionally.
Yeah.
But it's like, you got to move on at one point, right?
Yeah, but I'm 44 and I just talked to my mom and dad yesterday, and I call them like
great.
at least once a week. I'm FaceTiming
Yes.
twice a week. They're back in Wisconsin. And again, over the pandemic, I was like, there are moments where I'm just like sitting alone in my apartment. I'm like, I guess I'm going to call my mom and dad again.
Yes. Yes. We have to do that. And, for me, it's also like I told you, I have no friends basically in Korea. So like they're extra valuable for me.
Yeah.
'Cause otherwise I would have literally no human contact. I'm not even joking. Zero. Like I would go nuts. Obviously, I
Yeah.
could go out for walks and like, watch strangers like a creep, but that's not really, that doesn't really count as a human interaction, right?
Yeah, you do that every now and again, but
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
shouldn't
yeah.
be the bulk of your interactions.
I'm not gonna lie, I do that just to enjoy just hell out of it sometimes. Just watch people like a creep. I do like
do you
it.
and your mom go for walks?
We used to go like hiking a lot, but we've recently been really busy with our own works and stuff,
Yeah.
so we don't really see each other as much, even if we're living in the same house.
Sure.
But yeah, this has been fun, David. It's like,
Yeah.
I feel like that hour and a half just flew past. That was really
did.
fun.
It felt like that for me too. I'm so grateful that you were willing to talk with me. This stuff, and maybe you feel the same way. But talking about all this stuff, whether it's, hey, we got to like work on our relationships, or hey, we got to like work on not dealing with rejection better. All those things, like talking about it out loud with another human being, is really helpful.
Yes. I truly believe in one of like all these like couch talks. I love it, and I feel like we really all could use more of it, like because so much of the conversation revolves around like drama and what celebrities are doing, and what's the drama on the news. I truly believe that there's a lot to gain from just really delving into our emotions and just like just talking, just shooting the shit and talking about stuff that people a lot of people might consider overthinking and just like rambling. I think there's a lot to gain from it. Especially when you're doing it with other people, you know, like you're making more sense of it and there's more perspective to it than you just trying to have a conversation on your own. And that becomes a really messy thing sometimes.
Ooh, it's real messy when you're in that communication loop in your mind.
Yeah.
That can lead you down some dark roads. But I'm super grateful for this, and this is so nice for me as well, and for anyone that's listening. We're all going through the same stuff, and to hear other people going through it and talking about it it makes you feel closer and makes you feel less alone, and it's really important.
Well, you're always welcome back. We can always have another one of these sessions. This is fun. It's like a little therapy, right?
Boy, it really is.
It's like therapy, just unprofessional therapy, not certified.
Not certified. Neither of us are making any money.
We're not qualified at all. Very
no
not
way.
qualified.
No way. And in fact, if anything, we should be probably doling out less information and less
Don't
advice.
take our word for it. Don't
Not
take
at
it with a
all.
grain of salt, please. Okay. Thank you, David.
All right. Take care.
Talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.